guys, Bryce Smith here from Invictus Fitness, and I'm here to talk to you guys about Skill Acquisition 101 today. And so I'm going to use the strict pull-up as an example for today's topic of conversation. We get tons of people that come into the gym and they want to learn different skills. And more often than not, we have to mention to them it's rocks before sand. We can't just jump in and do all the sexy things that you see on Instagram. We need to start with the foundational basics, and then we're able to layer on top of that. And so when you think about skill acquisition, I always like to emphasize, okay, first we need to acquire the skill. If we don't have strict pull-ups, we can play around with things like ring rows, we can utilize the satellite bar, we can do partner progressions, or we can also do the jumping negative to acquire the strength and the stability to perform the skill. And so that would be step one, acquire the skill. Once you acquire the skill, I always recommend to then gradually get more volume with the skill. So that can be complete 30 strict pull-ups for quality. Not necessarily for time, we're not putting it on a clock, we're not necessarily giving you a specific rest interval, but we are saying, okay, we want you to accomplish 30 quality reps. And that can be pronated, supinated, or on the rings to provide a little bit of variance. And then obviously trying our best to pull those shoulders back and down so that we're strengthening the musculature of the upper back. Okay, so that would be step two, volume with the skill. Okay, now we get into some of the deeper, more specific elements. And that would be perform the skill with a controlled rest interval. So that could be something like perform 5 strict pull-ups, rest 60 seconds for a total of 5 sets. So you get a total of 25 reps, but now we're controlling the rest interval, which makes those progressive sets 2, 3, 4, and 5, a little bit more challenging because we're not allowing you to rest as needed. And so that's the next step in skill acquisition, which would be perform the skill with that controlled rest interval. The next step, which makes it a little bit more challenging, kind of in between the next step rather, is kind of performing the skill on like an EMOM. So that could be 5 strict pull-ups on the minute for 5 minutes. So in the beginning, you may perform 5 reps very fast and your rest interval is a little longer. But then upon fatigue, for some of us, that may take the entire minute because we're probably going to have to do some singles. And so that could be another way to play with it, where originally we have a specific rest interval, but then if you put it on the clock, like playing with an EMOM, for example, that would then, the rest interval may vary based on fatigue, okay? And the next thing that we're talking about is performing the skill in a fatigue state. And so more often than not, people come to us and they're like, hey, I got ring muscle ups, I'm gonna do fine in this open workout. But by the time you get to the ring muscle up, you've done so much work, or you've done assault biking, burpees, rowing, running, double unders, things that are gonna fatigue that skill. So it's not gonna feel as fluent as easy and as easy. So a great example of this when relating to the strict pull-up could be 5 rounds for time. 20 calorie assault bike, 5 strict pull-ups. And so obviously you're going to be incredibly fatigued as you're practicing the skill of strict pull-ups in comparison to where you are in the beginning where you're just acquiring the skill. And so those are kind of, in my opinion, the 4 steps of skill acquisition and understanding mastery of the movement. And so in the beginning, we talked about like understanding positioning and mechanics, and there's a lot of what I like to describe as conscious competence, where you're thinking a lot. Maybe in the beginning there's a little bit of what I call paralysis by analysis, where there's thinking, you're understanding shapes, you're understanding speed, you're understanding which musculature is being used. And then over time with practice, by going through these 4 steps, we then develop what I call mastery, which is unconscious competence, which is typically what you'll see with very advanced athletes at places like the CrossFit Games. They finish a really long run and they approach the pull-up bar and they don't need to think, they just jump up and go. And they know that they've practiced so many reps for so many hours at a very high level of intensity where they no longer need to think when performing the skill. And so as you guys go through your fitness journey, I want you guys kind of thinking about this, okay, in these 4 steps, because it also enables us to control some of the inflammation in and around joint structures, in and around the muscle fibers. And so going through these 4 steps will enable us to have progressive overload over time so you can keep getting better. And if at any time you feel like you've hit a roadblock, and I use the example of 5 reps, but we could also increase that volume to to try to enhance our strength endurance. And we see that a lot with athletes in movements like strict handstand push-ups, which can be another way that we acquire a skill, right? Playing around with those 4 steps. Originally we would practice just getting the handstand push-up. Then we would practice getting volume with the handstand push-up. Then we would perform the volume with that controlled rest interval or with an EMOM. And then lastly, performing the handstand push-up in a fatigue state after performing a variety of other tasks. Give this a shot. Let us know how it helps with your strength endurance, and see if that helps you kind of get over the hump with some of these more complex skills like the handstand push-up, pull-up variations, bar muscle-up variations, and obviously ring muscle-up variations. And obviously you can play with it with the Olympic lifts as well. Let us know in the comments how it works out for you. Thanks for checking out our video.